Rob Daniels. It is the week of the 15th of the 14th of December. And I thank you so much for joining me on the program. Today, we're on the Barn Burner TV network. We're on ZINGOTV channel 250 and TSN 1150. Going to try and link us now, actually, from the Facebook page onto my own page. Let's see if we are broadcasting there at this moment. Barn Burner TV network. Where are you? Nope, not that one. This one. There we go. The live feed. Okay, I got to try and link this to my page because that would be great. Because we have a special guest on today. So here we go. Just give me a second. Okay. Share and share now. Okay. Posted. All right, so here we go. We're live on, once again, the Barn Burner TV network and ZINGOTV channel 250, as well as TSN 1150, and out in Hamilton. And my name is Rob Daniels. So there are several social media handles you can follow as well in terms of Barn Burner, ZINGOTV, and TSN 1150. They are all online for you. Feel free to look them up because there is a lot there for you. So feel free to look them up, but they are all on their social channels. And coming up on the show today, I have a very special guest by the name of Scott Mitchell from TSN. He's a baseball insider there. Works at the Rogers Center quite frequently when the Blue Jays play at the Rogers Center. That is not in this era right now that we know of. Hopefully that returns soon. And so he's going to be on the program this afternoon, or rather today, and I can't wait to speak with him. And he's got, we're going to talk about quite a few things. We're going to talk about his thoughts on the baseball winter meetings that happened last week and how the Blue Jays could benefit from some of those perhaps. And will the Blue Jays be making any deals? If any, are they going to try and compete in 2021, or is 2022 the year? I also have some listener questions as well for Scott. And we're also going to talk about obviously what this show is centered around, which is memorabilia, autographs, and more. So I want to know, in this era, you know, I want to know how he sees autographs working in the future at ballparks across Major League Baseball. Will players sign for fans in the stands during the COVID era before the vaccine is fully distributed to as many people as possible? That's a big question I have for him today, and more. For now, though, I'd like to talk about this new piece that I got that I'm going to add to my collection, actually, a couple of new pieces. Here's the first one, and it's this is a Blue Jays backdrop. So this is, I'll tell you a quick story about it. Is that my buddy Phil Esposito, he's one of my best friends, right? And so for my birthday, which was earlier this month, December the 2nd, yes, old man, 37, he gave me some money to spend this year for my birthday. Very nice of him. And normally in the past, it has been a gift card to a restaurant, but he said he didn't know which ones would be open at the time with all that's going on with COVID, so that he figured the money would be better suited so I could get something I wanted. Well, last week, get this, I dropped by Chapters, right? And I don't, and don't I find this incredible right here, 5x7 photo of the Rogers Center. And for those of you that know me, you know, I'm not like, you know, I wish that we had a better ballpark in terms of the playing surface at the Rogers Center. But that could come. Something we could be picking Scott's brain about as well today on the show, Scott Mitchell, my guest who's going to be joining me shortly. And so right there, I figured this was a nice piece, and I'll explain the photo a bit to you. It's so it's got, you know, a limited edition. This is one of 400 authenticated game-used dirt right there. So that's the game-used dirt right there. And it's like a nice 5x7, 8x10-ish photo. I think it's 5x7 of the ballpark. And so what I figured, and I'll turn it around here for a moment, if I can explain it. It's got this sort of authentication square cutout that they put on the back if you want to see up close. Okay. Says Rogers Center, Toronto Blue Jays, game used photo mint. This unique collectible features game used dirt from Rogers Center, not from any particular game, season, or event that has been obtained under the auspices of the MLB authentication program, and can be verified by its numbered hologram at MLB.com, as well as a commemorative photograph. All right, and it's got the MLB logo there. So this is quite the authentic item that I found at Chapters. It was the last one left. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, it had to be done. I had to make the purchase. So the idea with this piece in this collection, because for those of you that know me on this show so far, is that I collect baseballs mostly, and also photographs, 8x10s, 5x7s, and such. So the idea with this piece is to you'd get yourself as many signatures as possible on this photo on the baseball diamond, and they're all signatures from any kind of Blue Jay. That's what I would center this piece around. Any kind of Blue Jay that's been a Blue Jay before can sign this photograph, and just get as many Blue Jays as possible on this photo. And that's what makes it fun. That's what makes the collecting fun, right? You have because I enjoy the chase. I don't know about you, but I enjoy the chase of trying to speak to ball players, pick their brains a bit, and then, hey, you mind signing this? And then if you can keep it in one pen, that makes it even better for you. I'd say more valuable if you keep it. If you ask me, I would go thin blue Sharpie on this all the way with each and every Blue Jay. And you try and get the entire thing signed by as many Blue Jays as possible. So that was thanks to my good buddy Phil, and hopefully one day I can fill that up with Blue Jay signatures. Maybe it's events, maybe it's sending it in the mail, but that would be the idea. And then you hang it up on the wall in your man cave whenever that happens. I'm in between homes now. So hopefully the idea one day would be that would be the vision, the dream, is to build that man cave up and, broadcast from there one day. Hopefully that's the dream anyway. So there's that piece. Thanks again to my buddy Phil Esposito. Yes, same name as that legendary hockey player. And a good friend Omar as well, Omar Turkey and Beta Turkey. They got me this they know I love Herschel and they know I love the Blue Jays. So they got me this little lunch bin, which I probably will not use as a lunch bin. I will store. You know what I thought about here? Because I'm such a collector and I wanted to go in the man cave. I sometimes collect baseballs that are used Major League baseballs or used minor league balls. And I love just collecting them. I love that aspect of it. So it's kind of like it's a little bit roomy for baseballs that you can throw in here. It's like a lunch bin. Herschel's the best. Throw in the baseballs you don't necessarily use for getting signed. So like new baseballs, you don't necessarily need to put the old ones on the shelf, the ones that you find off the field. Maybe you're at spring training. Maybe someone throws you a baseball. Maybe you have some old ones from back in the day and they're collecting dust and you just throw them in this nice little bin here. Now, how I use this, I'm not entirely sure yet. It doesn't have much room in that. But hey, if you have any ideas or suggestions, maybe it's beyond the baseballs for this. Maybe I can put something else in here other than food. I don't want to put food in here because I love Herschel. I don't want to spill orange juice and my tuna sandwich all over this Herschel bag. It's just too nice. You know what I mean? So email me, robdanielsonair@gmail.com. Let me know how I can use this new piece to add to the collection one day. Herschel. And thanks to Beta and Omar for that. So those are the new pieces, thanks to the birthday boy here. So that is kind of interesting. I like collecting that kind of stuff. And let me know how I could use that. robdanielsonair@gmail.com if you'd like to, or email me and let me know what your new collector's items are as well of late. I believe I'm joined by my very good special guest here, my good pal Scott Mitchell of TSN, who's trying to log on, trying to get his video image. Mr. Mitchell, are you there? Can you hear me? Okay, we're having a little bit of a technical glitch. I don't hear him. Okay, we're going to try and get back logged on in a moment here. For now, before Scott joins us, I want to remind you that you can be a part of this show. If you have any questions or if you have any subjects we can talk about, email me, robdanielsonair@gmail.com, or tweet me at robdanielsonair. Anything you want to share in regards to autographs, memorabilia, please feel free to email me or tweet me, and I would love to hear your story on the show one day. I believe Scott is trying to get back connected. Do we have him here? I'll wait a moment. Scott, are you there? Can you hear me? Hold on. What's happening? There he is. Hello.
Got me now?
Yeah, I got you now. You can hear me?
Yeah, got you. Sorry,
right.
Sorry. Technology, man.
I know. In this new era, it's very interesting. That's for sure. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too. You too.
I love that hat. Very. It's awesome. New era. And what team is that? I have no idea.
Little Arizona Fall League. It is the Desert Dogs.
Oh, is that like a AA, AAA team or something?
Yeah, it's Arizona Fall League, the prospect league that runs every year, September, October, down in Arizona. So
I love that, and that's my favorite part of collecting is like, teams that people in Toronto would not necessarily know of. Like my brother, for instance, I was like, oh man, I would do anything to have he threw on his toque, and I'm like, do you have a New Era Vancouver Canadians toque? I'm like, what? And now, and to know they're back in with the Toronto Blue Jays now, I'm like, you could get a lot of money for that thing now, bro. He's like, no, I'm holding on to this thing. It's kind of cool, neat to see, some of the franchise. Like I would sometimes like, and it sort of like crosses paths with autographs too. I was like, I would much rather have a Vladdy Jr. and Bo Bichette, autographed picture when they were in Lansing rather than them in Blue Jays uniforms. I like that vintage kind of, or when people before they were really discovered kind of thing.
Yeah.
Same goes for what's his name? Not what's his name. I should know. Just off the top of my head, who's that basketball player that made it big? He went to Vaughan Secondary School, my high school. Played for the Timberwolves. He plays for the Timberwolves.
Oh, Andrew Wiggins.
Wiggins, yeah. To have him in like a high school, like because he went to my high school, so to see him in like a Vaughan Secondary uniform with a black and white photo doing like a slam dunk, that's what I'd rather have signed than a Minnesota Timberwolves picture. But that's kind of cool. I like that's a nice icebreaker. Your hat this afternoon, very cool.
Yeah, it's casual Tuesday or whatever it is. I haven't left the condo in a day and a half. So
that's the COVID era now. That's what it is. Hashtag stay home. You know it, right?
Crazy, man. It's crazy.
It is very crazy. I am joined by my very special guest, Scott Mitchell, baseball insider for TSN. We are on the Barnburner TV network, ZINGOTV channel 250, and TSN 1150 out in Hamilton. So thanks so much for joining me today, Scott. Pick your brain on a few items and a few topics, I should say. First and foremost, because, well, this is an autographs and memorabilia kind of show. I wanted to know, like, from a baseball insider, I mean, you're on the field all the time, but as a kid, you were also a fan, I would imagine. So did you have a collection as a kid? Do you still collect now? What's your thoughts on that?
Nothing now, but yeah, when I was a teenager and a kid, I was huge into sports cards. I mean, they're still all in my mom's closet. She's been annoying me for about 15 years now to come get them and drag them out of there. But Yeah, I mean, huge collection, huge. Like I was diehard. I was one of the kids that would, back in the day when they used to have card shops and memorabilia shops kind of kicking around. I'd be one of those kids that would go and, spend my $5, $10 in allowance or whatever when I was 12 years old. And it would always go to sports cards. So, um, baseball, baseball and hockey for the most part,
Yeah.
little bit of football cards, but I had, well, I still do. I've got, I think, 200 Barry Bonds cards that I collected in the mid '90s. That was my
Yeah.
guy. My dad was a big San Francisco Giants fan, big Willie Mays fan. So
Yeah.
when Bonds signed with San Francisco, I became a Bonds fan. And this is obviously pre-steroid Bonds, kind of polarizing Bonds. But that was my guy, Bo Jackson too. I had, I got a ton of collectibles and stuff from him. So it was definitely sports cards. I still I got out of it when I, kind of probably in high school. I just kind of lost interest, just, had other things to do with my disposable money. And I think that was probably the time too, where sports cards were kind of devaluing a little bit. And I don't think, I just think I had better things to do. And, I think they're still cool. And every time I go to my mom's, I look at them and stuff like that. And I was big into autographs too when I was a kid. So I don't know, for any local people, you'd have to be pretty local to the Dirty Schwa to Oshawa to know this one. But at the Civic Auditorium, we had this lounge called the Bobby Orr Lounge,
Oh,
uh,
nice.
obviously named after famous Bobby Orr. And
Yeah.
someone in my family actually ran the lounge. So as a kid, I would come and stock up the beer before the Generals games and whatever. And so I would go get a ton of autographs. And this was in the mid '90s. So guys like Mark Savard were on the Generals, Jeff Ware, guys like that. So I got an extensive autograph collection too, but again, kind of the same thing. As soon as I got my teens, just kind of stopped.
Yeah. And it was mostly cards for you, you would say? Just all cards?
Yeah, yeah. Nothing really other than cards. I got into Pogs for a little bit when I was whatever age that was.
Slammer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, some hockey Pogs. That was grade 8-ish.
Yeah.
That was probably the last kind of thing I collected. I think in grade 8 I went to Pogs, and then I went, what am I doing? I'm kind of going into high school, just kind of lost interest. No real decision, just kind of just organically lost interest. But
Yeah.
mostly cards. Today now, I mean, obviously in my job, I get a whole ton of knickknacks and things like that. I was at David Ortiz last game at Fenway Park, so I got a plaque kicking around that they gave the media. So just kind of little knickknacks like that I keep. But
Yeah.
I try not to get too bogged down with all the memorabilia, because you can end up with a lot of stuff when you're doing what I do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you want to remain professional about it too. Like the way I do it, and the way I really wanted to start this show in the COVID era is because I collect a couple of things. I'm not like a crate, but it's mostly like just baseballs, whatever makes sense on a baseball, whatever makes sense on a picture or moments. Like I love like the Devo catch up against the wall. And if Devo can sign that, or if, Joe Carter jumping around the bases, that obviously that from the 93 World Series or 92 at first base when Tim went through him. Those types of moments I love. So I love moments signed. I love baseballs that make sense getting signed, and that's sort of about it. Or else my wife would probably toss the collection to the curb at that point, because it piles up, man. You know what it's like, just like your mom. My mom too. She'll bug me once in a while. It's like, Robbie, it's so much in the basement. Can you come by and let me know what you need, what you don't need? So you mentioned Bo Jackson there for a moment, and that you collect more things, like some things other than cards. Were his shoes at all a thing for you in the past? Because they were for me. Like I had a pair of Bo Jackson shoes.
I had the Bo Jackson cleats when I was a kid playing, but no Bo Jackson shoes. I don't even remember the Bo Jackson shoes, to be honest.
They were like these blue, orange, and white Nikes. I remember having them. Like I literally had a kid punch me in the gut because he was chasing me at recess. He wanted the shoes. That's what I'm like, dude. I don't have any of your shoes on. You want?
Did he get them or what?
He didn't get them, luckily, but I got winded. Hey, but I guess it was worth it. Still had the shoes on afterwards, but yeah, that's interesting. But that's cool that you're a card collector. You still have them kicking around. This is probably a question that a lot of people are wondering, and maybe the viewers of this show or the odd collector that is, kicking around in the COVID era and wondering how they can continue their hobby throughout all this. How do you see autographs working in the future at, let's say, ballparks across Major League Baseball in this COVID era? I mean, will players sign for fans in the stands during the COVID era before the vaccine is fully distributed and rolled out to as many people as possible, or are they going to sort of take a step back next season and sort of wait to bring that back?
Yeah, I mean, that's a real interesting question. And I think, as media people and people that are in the
Oh, I think your volume went a little lower. Let's see. Mm-hmm.
You still got me?
There. Yep.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I would just say that that's a real interesting question. And people that are in the game that, in normal years spend their days at the ballpark are kind of asking the same thing about what things are going to look like. Maybe not from that sense in particular, but yeah, I think 2021. Look, if you're going down to the ballpark, if people are allowed in the ballpark, and people will be in some places depending on what city you're in. Toronto obviously is going to be on the safer end of that scale.
Yeah.
So that's debatable, first of all, whether you're even allowed in the ballpark. And, even if you're hanging out outside the ballpark looking for autographs, I would say inside, no chance. Teams are going to be very, very, very careful, vaccine or not, in 2021. Eventually you would expect that it would get back to that. But that's one of the big questions that, us as media have. Clubhouse access has been a standard for a long time. And, will this change that? Will it change the clubhouse access? Will it change, the way, I guess, teams go about kind of constructing their ballparks? Will you be able to sit and hang on the front rail, and kind of get close to players, or will teams look at that as a safety hazard now? And that's, the $1 million question. I think teams are kind of working through that. And obviously a lot of the stuff is going to be league mandated. So, I think, as we saw with 9/11 and how it changed, flying and transportation in that mode, I really think that there are going to be a lot of changes. And right now it's really hard to predict, but yeah, I think some of that intimacy and closeness, you're going to lose. And yeah, if you're a guy that, if you're a family or whatever that goes down and loves to take watch BP and hang out by the dugout and hopefully get an autograph or two, I would definitely say for the foreseeable future, that's probably a no. And you know what, I hope it doesn't come to this, but I really think some major changes in terms of the intimacy and closeness in every sport is probably going to change in a big way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I really hope it's not for long, but at least until this is all settled down, I completely agree with what you're saying. And it's sad. I mean, there's ways of trying to work around it. Like I've spoken to some fans on this show, because I love having everybody on this show. Like whether it's a media personality like yourself, or a diehard fan, or an authenticator. And a lot of them, I think, have been resorting to mail. So some people have been mailing stuff out, and if they have a fan, whoever, if you could find their addresses or mail it to the ballpark, maybe that's a different way if they still love, or, I remember being a kid and I'd always try and send stuff to Maple Leaf Gardens. And that was the way of doing it as well. If you couldn't get close on the ice type of thing, and they would mail you something back. And so I think we see snail mail possibly coming back in the next couple of years, if you're talking about the hardcore fan. But that is definitely, I mean, what do you envision though for, let's say, I mean, the US is a different monster with all this, and you go down to that brand new beautiful facility in Dunedin. We're talking about the fans, and I've never been down myself. I mean, I can't wait to do that trip one day. I really hope to in my lifetime. But we're talking about fans that go down in 2021. What's that going to look like in the US? Because the spring training has been a lot more intimate than being in your regular Major League Baseball park. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, like I said, I think teams in the league are going to do everything kind of in their power to limit contact with these players, in terms of just not just fans and autograph seekers, but anybody. I mean, this year we're tier 3. We weren't allowed near the players. Obviously, everyone's doing everything on Zoom, but some people were. And obviously that contact is going to be limited, vaccine or not. I think, as we get back to normalcy. I would hope by the 2022 season that I think, you know, teams in the league just takes a step back and says, you know, kind of says to themselves, what's in this for us? You know, pandemic now, we've realized what this can bring, you know, the kind of problems that, you know, close contact with people you don't know, you know, what that can cause. And I think everyone in society is going to, you know, look at some of the measures we have in place, and we're just going to have to get used to them. So that's going to be real interesting. Like I said, going back to clubhouse access, I would expect our clubhouse access to not look the same. I would expect autograph access to not look the same. And this is in the ballpark. So when we talk about Dunedin and TD Bank, TD ballpark down there, I walk by the autograph seekers every single day. And I think, you know, coming out for a player in that scenario, that's probably going to be a personal choice. And as we, you know, see with this issue, some are going to say, sure, I'll sign, I don't care. And some are going to say, look, you know, sorry, you know,
everyone's got that. And that's the thing. I think everyone's got a different opinion on this in terms of how far do they take it? Do they not want to touch? Do they, or maybe it's like, okay, hey, can you toss me the ball and I'll sign it? I'll throw it back to you. I'm not going to, you know, shake hands kind of thing.
Yeah. Every player is going to have a personal take on that and a personal safety measure. And, you know, I think as we get removed from this, you know, that'll loosen up. I mean, in 6 months, you know, you and I are going to be doing different things than we are 2-3 years from now. So,
yeah, exactly. So, and I'm joined by my very special guest here. This is Scott Mitchell of TSN. We are on the Barn Burner TV network, ZINGOTV channel 250 and TSN 1150. Thanks so much for being along with us, Scott. So yeah, obviously the autograph and memorabilia era is going to change in these next couple of years. We sure hope it returns to normal. So, you know, kids, even for, I think of Junior Jays and, you know, myself as a kid, they love, like you were saying, going to batting practice and all that is going to change, I imagine, this year. And even for yourself, going to the clubhouse, it might be a little bit of a walking on an eggshells feeling because you don't know how close you maybe have to have like you got to turn your selfie stick into a microphone or something. And, you know, when you're interviewing these guys, because you don't know how close you can really get or what their comfort zone is. I mean, the rules are in place, but everyone's got a different take on it. So it could be a little bit of walking on eggshells. And I commend you for, you know, still, obviously you're going to be working, you're going to be in the ball. We hope, do you think it's going to be in the Rogers Center in 2021, or are you bracing for Buffalo again? Or
definitely not Buffalo. Look, I mean, what I've learned, you know, since March in this is don't try to think too far ahead. Don't try to predict too much. And I think that's you know, where the Jays are at with all this. They haven't made a decision. You know, they're not going to make a decision till March. So, you know, everyone's optimistic. I think with all the vaccine news, things like that the border will open. And that's obviously the key. You know, fans to start the season, you know, that's probably 0% chance at this point, but baby steps. You know, I think Dunedin would be the contingency plan rather than Buffalo, just because of the setup down there for them. So
sure, yeah, it's an incredible ballpark. You've been there. You've been there a couple times already.
Yeah, we go every spring. So last year, obviously, they renovated it. Looks great, and you know, they probably would have played there this summer had the spike in Florida kind of not coincided with, you know, June, July, and when they needed to be down there. So I would expect that's the contingency plan. But you know, it's December right now. Let's cross our fingers and hope this is figured out and the borders open by April.
Yeah, let's hope. What are your thoughts, Scott, on the baseball winter meetings? They happened last week. And this is interesting because I've been talking to a couple of listeners of this show and they have a couple questions too, which I'll get to in a moment. But I want to know, like, who are the Blue Jays close to making any deals with? You're the guy that reports on this type of stuff. You're the expert. I've heard a couple of names get tossed around. I mean, I think it goes beyond Lindor and Springer for interest. I don't know typically too much beyond that, but you're the expert. Do you have anything to say or anything that you might be able to reveal in terms of who they could be making a deal with in the near future?
Well, look, I would say the three names as far as position players go would be George Springer, DJ LeMahieu, and Ha-Sung Kim. Those are the three to keep an eye on at the top of the market. But the reason this this is so hard to predict for the Blue Jays, is they could really go any route. You could sign George Springer for 125 million and plug him into center field. You could sign JT Realmuto for 125 million and plug him behind the plate, and then trade Danny Jansen and or Alejandro Kirk, which is going to bring back a significant return. You could sign LeMahieu and plug him at second base, third base, first base, have another versatile piece. The key with these guys is they want to find high contact hitters, a guy that can, have tough at bats. They've got enough power in that lineup. They need some guys that, see a few more pitches. A guy like LeMahieu would really fit with what they need skills wise. So it's really hard to predict because, obviously it takes two to tango, and we don't really know at this point because of how slow this offseason has moved if any of those players have mutual interest in coming into Toronto. So if they don't have mutual interest, there's really no point, and then they have to move on to their contingency plan. But I would say Springer's the best fit. LeMahieu's a good fit too. You couldn't argue with Real Muto, and then there's going to be a little bit of a domino effect, and then you got to go about, fixing the rotation, and Trevor Bauer's still in that mix a little bit. There's a ton of names there. There's a ton of guys on the trade market. A Lindor trade has been talked about, but there's so many moving parts there, and you're not going to make that deal without paying them $300 million over the next 10 years. So, that's a trade that goes well beyond the front office and is one that's really hard to construct. The Blue Jays could do it. So it's going to be interesting. And it sounds like a cop out saying that they could, go all these different routes, but it's 100% true. And, if George Springer decides on the New York Mets, which I would say at this point is probably the favorite, then the Blue Jays have to deviate. So, it's going to be interesting, and we're in such an uncertain time right now financially with every single team. All we know really is that the Blue Jays are in pretty good shape roster wise, and they're in pretty good shape payroll wise to be able to make a splash this winter. And, will they get their top target or top targets? Hard to say. But, when we're sitting here in a month and a half's time, I would suggest that, fans that are, maybe on edge with this slow off season, really hoping for them to make a splash. I would say in 6 weeks time, we're going to be sitting here and the Blue Jays are going to be a better baseball team. It just may not be the names that everyone is kind of wishing for at this point.
Yeah. In terms of, let's say the middle infield, I went to go see them. I loved going to go see them, by the way. And I went to Binghamton and I watched the infield. I thought that would be here right now, where it was like Vladdy at third. And I saw them when the Fisher Cats were against the Binghamton the Mets. And it was like about a 5-hour drive from here. And Bo was at short. Cavan was at 2. And I'm like, I thought that would be the infield. So what are these guys? Have you spoken to them before? What their thoughts are on being, I know they're team players, but is it really a punch to the gut to them? Do you think that if Bo would have to move from short to second base, is that something you think he's really willing to do?
Look, there is an aspect of these guys, wanting to play positions that they want to play, positions they feel comfortable at. Sometimes it's just not their best position. And, when you look at the reality of it, if it makes a ball team better to acquire a Francisco Lindor, sure. Knowing Bo Bichette, knowing his competitiveness, he would move. Would he love it? No, not at all. I mean, when you look at those positions, especially shortstop, there's kind of a team leadership thing to it. There's the Derek Jeter, captain, my captain,
King of
Bo
the
Bichette really loved the fact that he proved people wrong in the minor leagues, because there was a lot of questions. And I think a lot of the defensive questions that he got coming up through the minors, you're starting to see now a little bit. He doesn't have an elite arm, so ranging to his right and going to the hole, is a little bit of a struggle for him. And this isn't to say, and I'm very cautious to point this out, this isn't to say he can't do it. Bo Bichette can be an average shortstop at the big league level, and an average shortstop at the big league level defensively is still a very, very, very valuable player when you consider how good his bat could be. So, you also have to look at on the flip side of that, that if it mitigates some of his throwing issues, to go to second base, he could be an elite defender there. And, this franchise has already seen, one guy who we had no trouble calling a franchise player at second base in Roberto Alomar. So it's not a knock on Bichette. It's
Yeah.
just the fact, if you can acquire an elite guy that makes your defense better, that makes your team better, you have to kind of look at it. And, I think Bichette in the end would be fine with it. But you also have to consider that, after the 2025 season, this guy's going to be a free agent. There's just a little bit of a sensitivity angle to it that you have to make sure that you're communicating and doing, this in the best interest of the team.
Yep, absolutely. And I think the same sort of mentality has to go for Kevin Biggio, which we saw last season. Like, he's willing to be that super utility guy. He's got a great bat, swings an incredible bat. He's got speed, and he can play anywhere for you. I mean, he doesn't pitch, but or catch that I know of, but everywhere else he's played, I think, on the diamond last season, right?
I'm sure he could catch if you wanted him to. But
I mean, he'd be like, "Yeah, Skip, I'm out there."
That's why it's a little bit of a different conversation with those other two guys than it is with Bo, is because, first of all, Vladdy, obviously, we've seen this winter, he wants to play third base. Wanting to do something and being able to do it are two different things. And,
right.
When you look at that situation, I think the writing is on the wall. And then when you look at the Biggio situation, he knows versatility. I remember talking to him in single A and double A, and he said, you know what, I'm going to try to play as many positions as possible because that's going to be able to help me and it's going to help the team. So you have three kind of different situations where one really loves moving around and knows that's his skill set. One isn't very good defensively and they're trying to find a home. And then there's Bo, who is pretty good, but when you talk about the most, the hardest position to play in baseball, if you can upgrade there with an elite player, you have to consider it. So it's an interesting situation. And I think we're kind of at a tipping point, this year and into next year of where these kids end up kind of long term.
Yeah. I have a couple of questions from a couple of listeners of this show, and they are this one from Phil, listener of The Sweet Spot, memorabilia, autographs, and more. Okay, so he says, well, and then I think you sort of touched on this, but maybe he asks, are the Jays in on everyone? Ask Scott if he thinks they are just blowing smoke up the fans, or are they actually going to do something? LOL.
Well, see, that is actually the kind of the opinion that I'm getting on Twitter is, I'll believe it when I see it, because people are getting annoyed that, they're attached to all these names. And, here's the deal with, the Blue Jays situation. And it's a tricky one because they have come on the record and said, we've got money, we want to spend, we want to make this team better. The problem when you do that is there's not a lot of teams, especially this year around baseball, doing that. So agents are working overtime, attaching their guys' names to the Blue Jays just to drum up interest, because when you say you have money, it's very believable that you're in on everybody. So some of these names are realistic, some of them aren't. Like I said, all I would say is just don't get attached to the names. If you're dying for George Springer, if you're dying for Trevor Bauer, if you're dying for DJ LeMahieu, you might be disappointed. But I mean, the trade market, comes with numerous alternatives that, kind of aren't being talked about because, a trade can happen in a blink of an eye. So like I said, the resources are there, the desires there, we'll see what interest is mutual. And, if the interest isn't mutual, you have to deviate to the trade market. But, I think the Blue Jays, when they get back to Dunedin, people will probably be satisfied with, the winter of work they've done.
Yeah.
And if they're not, I mean, there's always a chance they strike out in numerous ways. And, if it comes to that, we'll talk about that in January and February. But, I think there's enough interest from agent side and player side of where this Blue Jays team is going and how good they're going to be that, free agents will be interested in the end.
In your mind, though, what's the deadline for these big names? Like, when do we say, like, okay, this is not happening? Is it like the 15th of January, or is it like it could be like what we've seen in previous years, like right up until the second week of spring training?
Yeah, I mean, nothing's off the table this year. It's the
Yeah.
strangest year, in our lifetimes. And when you see Bryce Harper and Manny Machado wait till February to sign in a
Yeah.
normal year, nothing's off the table. So, I could tell you that the floodgates will open here over the next 2 weeks to a month. But, in a pandemic with so many teams kind of trying to shed money, it's hard to say what's going to happen.
Uh, and last question from Phil. Because he says he would be like the honorable person. He wouldn't totally make a deal with the ballpark if he could press the dynamite button on the ballpark. Are we get is this happening? Is it like, are we, because he loves the fact that we would get a new ballpark because he's just not a fan of the playing surface at the ballpark and he wants that new ballpark and he would do anything for it ASAP. Is that something in the next couple of years that'll happen, or is this something we're looking at like 2027, a long-term project? Have you heard anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, 2027, I would say at this point would be probably even quick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about it a lot this decade. I would guess by the end of the decade, I would doubt that this is any sort of quick moving job, especially with all the uncertainty here over the next probably 18 months or so. So, I think if any baseball fan in Toronto, especially if you're kind of a purist and you look at some of the stadiums that popped up right after Skydome was built in the 90s and into the 2000s, I think this, the natural kind of evolution of this franchise is another stadium. This one's 30 years old. It did its job. I give I have a little bit more of a soft spot for Skydome than, a lot of people. And, I don't think it aged well, but when you look at the situation, it's clear, they've shed all the bad contracts on this team. They've built up the pipeline. It looks like they're heading into, what's going to be an interesting competitive window. Everything is stable with this franchise and, a nice waterfront ballpark, open air, probably retractable roof. I think that would be, the crown jewel and the next step. And I think when Mark Shapiro was hired in 2015, that was definitely one of his mandates. And we actually talked to him last week and, he said just the scope of the project got so big that, the timing wasn't right. So, they'll revisit it here at some point. And, I would guess if you wanted to set an over under, maybe that 2027 year, 5-6 years down the road, I think, if they get moving here over the next 2 years, it could be doable. So, we'll see. There's so many kind of things on the table in terms of that area and what you could do with it in terms of kind of trying to do a Busch Stadium type deal where you knock half it down and build on the same plot of land. But I've also heard, other kind of plots of land along the lakeshore that I think, would be ideal spots if you wanted to do that. So it should be exciting, but be prepared for a ton of talk and a ton of politics, because obviously I think, private funding is the way to go with any sort of stadium, but politics get involved and the story goes different places. But, it should be on the radar of Blue Jays fans, because I would say in 2030, you're probably sitting in a different ballpark.
Oh yeah, for sure. And don't get me wrong, I have a soft spot as well for the dome. I loved it there in the 90s and early 2000s. But yeah, I could see what you're saying. It is aging, and it's more so why I would want that new ballpark is just the playing surface. I'm sure what the guys love is like, in Buffalo for instance, like it's and my buddies will make fun of me for this because they know I love like perfectly manicured type fields, and there's something in the States about those ballparks that they do that we haven't been able to construct or conform, like with the grass, and I think it just costs money. The I think, after talking to some of the staff there at the ballpark, they also said underneath the piping, it would cost a ton of money to just flip that into grass there. It's almost like not possible. So, but I respect it for what it is and all the memories in there. And it's, it's like anything. You need an oil change, you need an upgrade. That's all it is at this point. Right. And
New turf field this year. So
what's that?
New turf field this year. So there'll be no seams. So maybe
is it a new turf field?
Yeah, maybe that will satisfy your need for some perfectly manicured
Some
fake
perfectly
grass. So
manicured grass.
yeah,
Maybe, maybe.
they're putting that in over the next couple months. So it's
Nice.
supposed to be a little bit of an upgrade for the players in terms of the knees and stuff. And yeah, no seams, so a little safer and a little prettier.
Okay, very good. Look forward to seeing that. And one last question here before we get to Eric Cohen, who's standing by with TSN for your update on Thursday night football. This from Isaac. He says, and this is probably going back to the deals that they're trying to make. Liam Hendricks, I heard, is a Jays target. Former Jay. What are your thoughts on that, Liam Hendricks?
Yeah, look, I think when you look at this team, there's definitely going to be bullpen improvements on the horizon. Obviously, right now it would be Rafael Dolis and Jordan Romano at the back end of the bullpen. So I think there's definitely room for an addition or two. I think Brad Hand would be, an interesting addition just because of the fact, obviously, he's a lefty. There's no lefty at the back end of that pen, and you're going to get him on a 1-year deal. And that's the interesting part about them chasing Hendricks is that's one of the alternatives. And I think that would be an alternative that, would be probably more in plan B, C, or D, because he's going to come on a multi-year deal, first of all, and relief pitchers are, notoriously volatile. You don't really know what you're getting year to year, even though he's been so consistent and good. So, and you're going to have to pay him probably, on a 2-3 year deal, 10, $12 million. So you're talking 30, 35 million bucks. So I think, if the Blue Jays did sign Liam Hendricks, it probably means that, somewhere along the way, one of their other targets that they were prioritizing, whether it's in the rotation or a position player, probably came off the board and they had to kind of deviate. So, that's the thing that we keep going back to. It's not only that there's good players, at different positions available that you can fit in. It's that the Blue Jays really could conceivably just improve everywhere: infield, outfield, rotation, bullpen. So, that's why you're hearing all these names, and being attached to, the best reliever on the market isn't a bad thing. It's just what you get in the second or third year of that deal, because he's going to be the most expensive guy on the market from that spot.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much to my very special guest, Scott Mitchell. We are on the Barn Burner TV network, ZINGOTV channel 250, and TSN 1150 Hamilton. So before we let you go, your thoughts: are they a contender in 2021, or is 2022 the year? What would you say?
Well, I'll hedge that bet with look, if it's expanded postseason again, yeah, they'll be a contender and in the mix. If we go back to what we had, originally, a little bit of a tougher road, but look, this team is going to be better than last year, and yeah, I think 2022. If you're thinking World Series, that's probably more of the year that things kind of open up, but. This team expects to improve. And when you're 4 games over 500, last year, you should be a contender. There's no room to go backwards from here. I mean, this window is opening, and these kids should only get better from here.
So the plan for you is to show up at spring training in February for now. Is that it though? Or will you still, that's the plan?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we'll see. Obviously travel got shut down in 2020. So, vaccines, things like that. We'll see what it looks like. But yeah, I mean,
it's never been more up in the air than right now.
February 10th would be, kind of the time that I would leave. And, we've got 2 months till then ish. And then we'll see what it looks like. I think from my point of view, the safety and my travel, is something that my employer is concerned about. And, I'm thankful for that. If it's my choice, I'm willing to go cover baseball, but obviously a lot of the parameters are in place. You don't have much access anyways. So lot to figure out between now and next year for what things look like access wise for us and where we're at. So we'll see.
All right. Well, thanks so much for doing this today, Scott. Really appreciate it. Hopefully we can check in with you down the line and hopefully see that collection one day of those baseball cards. I want to see those Barry Bonds cards at some point. Yeah.
I promise you next time I'll dig some of them out. Maybe I'll even I'll appease my mother and go get some of them someday.
All right. Thanks again for doing this. That's Scott Mitchell, baseball insider for TSN. and TSN 1150. So thanks so much, Scott. We'll talk to you again soon.
Cheers, man. Anytime.
Okay. And we got another TSN insider joining us as well with Eric Cohen, who takes care of the Thursday night football aspect here. And of course, you can look forward to a great week this week in Thursday night football on TSN 1150. What's the latest, Eric? Oh, I don't think I have your audio on. Are you on mute?
Yeah, you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. All right. Let's get that latest. No worries.
How are you, Rob?
I'm good. Yourself?
I'm good. If the Thursday night football game this week is anything like the Monday night football game this week, boy, football fans are in for a treat because we are coming off the game of the year on Monday between the Browns and the Ravens. That was an incredible football game. So much drama, 20 points in the final 2 minutes, one of the most entertaining fourth quarters ever. Lamar Jackson, reigning MVP, coming back from cramps to lead the Ravens to an improbable win after they were down 7 late. So just so much drama and intrigue in the Monday night games. Now we move ahead to Thursday, and the Raiders and the Chargers. Highly doubt this will be anywhere close to the Browns-Ravens game. But hey, you know what? It's football. We take what we can get right now. The Raiders are in a dogfight for a playoff spot in the AFC. The Raiders did not like to see the Ravens winning that game because they're challenging right now with the Ravens for that 7th spot in the AFC. And the Raiders have not played very well. They're their only win in the last month was a Hail Mary against the Jets, a game they probably should have lost. So they're coming off getting blown out by the Colts. The Chargers have had a forgettable year other than the fact that they found their quarterback in Justin Herbert, who's been incredible. But as far as wins and losses, things have not gone well for the Chargers. They did beat the Falcons on Sunday. So big game for the Raiders. They really got to have this one. They got to sweep the Chargers for a second straight year if they're going to stay alive in the AFC wildcard playoff chase. So we'll see. Should be high scoring, should be entertaining. These two teams don't like each other. So that's the Chargers and the Raiders, and that's Thursday night on TSN.
All right. Good to hear from you, Eric. I appreciate the Thursday night football update, and I believe we will be checking in one more time with you in this incredibly odd 2020 next week.
Odd is a good word. Scott Mitchell was great, by the way. He knows his Blue Jays. I enjoyed listening to him.
Yeah, he is fantastic. And thank you so much for listening to that show. And thank you so much for doing what you do on this program, Eric. Look forward to hearing from you again next week.
All right. Take care, Rob.
Yeah, good to see you.
You too.
That's that does it for this week's edition of the Sweet Spot memorabilia, autographs, and more. Thanks so much for joining me. My name is Rob Daniels, and you can email the show anytime, robdanielsonair@gmail.com. Perhaps you have a story that you want to share in terms of autographs or memorabilia, something that happened to you at a stadium or at a hockey arena, whatever it was in terms of getting that autograph, or you have a fun story in terms of autographs or something you want to show off. I want to see it. I want to know. I want other people to be a part of that as well. So please email the show, let me know, and I'll have you on happily. robdanielsonair@gmail.com. That does it again for this week. I'll talk to you one last time in 2020 next week. Have yourself a good one, and stay well, stay safe.